I had a broken leg. I asked my daughter-in-law for a glass of water. What she said next cost her everything. My name is Philip Hargrove. I'm 67 years old, retired, and I spent 30 years working as a private insurance investigator. I tracked fraud artists across 6 states. I sat across from liars so convincing their own families had no idea. I thought I'd seen every kind of deception there was. Turns out I hadn't looked close enough at my own kitchen. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was on the couch with my left leg up on 2 pillows, cast running from ankle to knee, itching in places I couldn't reach. The TV was on. Some home renovation show Diane always had running in the background. She was 36 years old, my son Leonard's wife of 4 years, and she was sitting in the armchair across the room, scrolling her phone like the rest of the world didn't exist. Leonard was at the kitchen table, 12 feet away, close enough to hear everything. My throat was dry. My crutches were leaning against the couch arm, reachable, but every step on them sent fire through my hip. I figured I'd ask. "Diane," I said, "could you grab me a glass of water?" She didn't look up right away. About 10 seconds passed. Then she turned, looked straight at me, and her face had something in it I'd been pretending not to notice for months. Not annoyance, something colder than that. "Go get it yourself," she said. "I'm not your nurse, old man." I looked over at Leonard. He looked at his phone. I smiled. I reached for my crutches. I got up slow, made my way to the kitchen, filled a glass from the tap, and stood there drinking it at the sink. Every step hurt. I didn't show it. And right there, standing in my own kitchen in a house my father built, I made a decision. I was done pretending everything was fine. Let me back up about 18 months. Leonard and Diane moved into Hargrove House after their lease ran out downtown. The plan was temporary. Save some money while they looked for a place to buy. My wife Carol had passed 3 years before. The house felt too big for one person. I said yes without thinking twice about it. The first few months were easy enough. Diana cooked a few times a week. Leonard and I watched games on Sunday afternoons. It almost felt like having the place alive again. Then things started drifting. The thermostat kept getting adjusted without anyone mentioning it. The living room started filling up with Diane's work stuff. Her laptop, her binders, her fabric samples. Leonard stopped coming on our Saturday morning fishing trips. First it was once, then twice, then he just stopped showing up. When I'd bring it up, he'd say they had plans. Diane started talking about the house at breakfast. Always casual, always while she was looking at something else. "A property this size must be expensive to keep up, Philip. Have you thought about what happens to it when you're gone? Probate on old houses like this can drag on for years. It ties up everything." I'd nod and say I'd think about it. I did think about it, the same way I used to think about a claim that came in too clean. The numbers lined up a little too neat. After 30 years, that feeling is hard to turn off, but I told myself I was being paranoid. She was just making conversation. This was my son's wife. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. That was my mistake. Hargrove House sits on just under 2 acres on James Island, about 20 minutes from downtown Charleston. My father built it in 1958. I grew up in it. I raised Leonard in it. The property appraised last year at $7,000 to $80,000. The live oaks out front are older than I am. It's the kind of place people slow down to look at when they drive by. It's also the kind of place that makes certain people start calculating. Diane, she started calculating the day she walked through the front door. I just didn't see it clearly until she told me to crawl to the kitchen myself. That night I waited until 1 in the morning. Leonard and Diane were upstairs. The house was quiet. I made my way to the study on my crutches, closed the door behind me, and opened my laptop. Diane's company was called Carver Home Consulting LLC. She'd mentioned it a few times over the past year. Interior design consulting, she said. I'd never looked into it. I ran a search on the South Carolina Secretary of State Business Registry. The registered business address for Carver Home Consulting LLC was Hargrove House. My address. My property, filed without my knowledge, without my permission, without a single conversation about it. I sat back and let that land. Every lawsuit filed against that company, every IRS notice, every collection letter would come to my mailbox. And if the person checking that mailbox wasn't me, those letters would vanish. The debts would pile up. The legal problems would grow, and I'd have no idea my home was being used as a shield for someone else's mess. I kept digging. She'd been quietly pulling the recycling before I got to it. I'd noticed it and thought nothing of it at the time. I went to the bin in the hallway and started going through every piece of paper she'd stuffed in there over the past month. The first envelope was a final notice from a debt collection agency. Amount owed $31,000. The second was from a law firm in Atlanta. Breach of contract. Damages sought $67,000. The third was from the IRS. Notice of underpayment. Amount in question, $77,000. I kept sorting, letter after letter, creditor after creditor. By the time I finished, the stack on my desk added up to $175,000 in hidden debt, all addressed to Hargrove House, all quietly disappearing before I could see them. I looked at that stack for a long time. This wasn't a woman who married my son and happened to have some business problems. This was someone who had picked a target and moved in. I found the invoices next. Printed copies tucked inside a manila folder at the back of the recycling bin, like she'd almost decided to keep them but changed her mind. Uneat $5,000 in residential design consultation services. Billed across 7 different clients over 14 months. I cross-referenced every address listed. I looked up permits, contractor records, county inspection logs. Not one of those renovation projects existed. The money had moved through the LLC and gone somewhere. No work had been done, no materials purchased, no permits pulled. Just paper and $85,000 that couldn't be accounted for by anything real. I sat in that study until 4 in the morning. Coffee gone cold, leg aching. I had a notepad in front of me with 3 columns. What I knew, what I could prove, what I still needed. The 3rd column was still the longest. Here's the part I didn't put together right away. For about 4 months, I'd been feeling off. Slower in the mornings, foggy, reaching for words I'd used my whole life and finding nothing there. I'd walk into the study to get something and stand in the doorway for 30 seconds trying to remember why I came. I blamed it on the broken leg, on the stress, on not sleeping well. I told myself it was age. 67 isn't young. Things slow down. I accepted it. Then one morning, Diane had an early appointment and left before 7. I made my own coffee. By 9 o'clock, I felt completely like myself. Sharp, present. I read the paper straight through without losing my place. I remembered 3 phone numbers I hadn't dialed in years. My thoughts moved fast and clean the way they used to. I sat with that all day. The next morning, Diane made the coffee and I drank it. By 10, I was sluggish again, hunting for words, losing the thread of things. I tested it 4 more times over 2 weeks. The pattern held every single time. On a morning when Diane was out, I made my own cup and saved the remainder of what was in the pot in a small container. Sealed it, wrapped it in a plain envelope and addressed it to an independent toxicology lab in Colombia I'd used on insurance cases for years. I mailed it from the post office on Folly Road while Diane was at her so-called client meeting. 9 days later, the results came back. Antihistamine compounds. Elevated concentrations, not enough to put someone in the hospital, just enough to slow a 67-year-old man down, make him forgetful, make him seem like he was slipping, make him look like someone who couldn't manage his own affairs anymore. I read the report twice. Put it in the safe behind the bookshelf. Then I went back to the couch, picked up the TV remote, and sat there like nothing had happened. I still had a role to play. For the next 2 weeks, I gave Diane exactly what she was building toward. Every morning she made the coffee, I thanked her, carried it to the kitchen, and poured it down the sink. Then I drank a cup I made myself in the bathroom with the little single-serve machine I'd moved in there quietly, and then I performed. I asked Leonard what day it was at breakfast, asked again at lunch. I left my reading glasses on the kitchen counter and spent 10 minutes searching for them in the living room. I let my eyes go slow and unfocused when Diane talked about the house, about costs, about what happens to old properties when the owner can't manage things anymore. She documented every bit of it. I could see it in the way she'd glance at her phone right after one of my episodes, taking notes, logging symptoms, building her file. She thought she was watching her plan come together. She had no idea I was building mine right alongside it. I told Leonard I had a doctor's appointment on a Tuesday morning and took a car service downtown. There was no doctor. There was Claudette Fairbanks, a state attorney, 4th floor on Meeting Street, 23 years in practice. Her office was clean and quiet, 1 plant on the windowsill, no diplomas on the wall. The kind of attorney who stopped needing to prove herself about 15 years ago. She shook my hand and told me to sit down and tell her what I had. I opened the folder I'd brought from home and laid everything across her desk. The LLC registration showing my address as the business location. The stack of debt notices totaling $175,000, the fake invoices, the toxicology report. She read through each page without expression. When she got to the lab results, she read that page twice, then set it down and looked at me. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "I want the house protected," I said. "No matter what paperwork she files, no matter what a doctor says about my condition, no matter what a judge hears about my memory, I want it somewhere she can't reach." Claudette explained the revocable living trust. Transfer the property into the trust. I stay as trustee and sole beneficiary. I keep full control and can change anything at any time, but the title belongs to a legal entity, not to me personally. Any attempt to seize assets through guardianship runs directly into South Carolina trust law, which treats that kind of arrangement very differently than individual ownership. From the outside, nothing changes. Same house, same address, same old man on the porch. But the thing Diane had been planning to take was no longer in a place she could get to. I wrote Claudette a check. The paperwork would be ready within the week. On the drive home, I watched the marsh go by outside the window, Spanish moss, tidal flats, the same landscape I'd looked at my whole life. I thought about how long I'd let this go on before I acted, how many mornings I'd made excuses, how many breakfasts I'd sat across from a woman who was quietly working to take everything my father built and hand it to herself. I thought about Leonard sitting 12 feet away and saying nothing. Some lessons take longer to see than they should. The important thing is you don't miss them twice. Back home, I called Nathaniel Pruitt. He's 36 now, special agent with the FBI Financial Crimes Unit out of Colombia. I trained him when he was 24. A claims analyst who could barely read a balance sheet without squinting. I spent 2 years teaching him how fraudsters hide money, how they structure transactions, how they make dirty numbers look clean on paper. He was a fast learner. "One of the best I worked with," he answered on the third ring. "Nathaniel," I said, "I need 10 minutes. Professional consultation." There was a pause. "Mr. Hargrove, it's been a while. It has. I'm listening if you are." I walked him through everything. The LLC registered at my address without my consent. The $175,000 in debts routed to my mailbox. The $85,000 in fake invoices with no corresponding work. The toxicology report. The pattern I'd been watching for 18 months. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. "Send me what you have," he said. "Officially, I'm not making any commitments, but what you're describing falls within a range that would warrant a preliminary review." I thanked him and hung up. 7 days later, he called back. His voice had changed. The careful, neutral tone was gone. "Philip," he said, "the financial records crossed the threshold for a formal preliminary review. But there's something else." He told me that Carver Home Consulting LLC had appeared in the records of 2 other guardianship cases in South Carolina over the past 3 years. Both involved elderly property owners. Both followed the same pattern. A younger person moves in under the pretense of helping. The older person starts showing signs of cognitive decline. A private evaluator gets called in and documents the symptoms. Guardianship gets filed. Property transfers before anyone understands what happened. In one of those cases, the property owner was the father of Diane's first husband. That man lost his house 18 months after Diane moved in. She had done this before. She wasn't desperate or opportunistic. She was practiced. I was not her first attempt. I was just the first target who'd spent 30 years learning to recognize exactly what she was doing. Nathaniel told me the investigation had expanded beyond my case. I thanked him again and set down the phone. Through the study window, I could see the backyard, the live oak my father planted the year I was born, still standing. Still solid. Some things hold up if you take care of them. I kept performing. Diane came home from a meeting that afternoon and asked how I was feeling. I told her my head was a little foggy. She nodded slowly. That particular nod she'd been using for weeks, sympathetic on the surface, but with something else underneath. She asked if I remembered what we'd talked about at breakfast. I told her I thought so, but wasn't entirely sure. She wrote something in her phone. 3 days later, she made her move. It was a Wednesday evening. Dinner was on the table. Leonard sat across from me. Diana set a small stack of papers on the table between the salt and the breadbasket, like she was setting down the mail. She said she'd had her attorney draw up some documents. Just a precaution, she said. For everyone's protection, given what she and Leonard had been noticing lately. Power of attorney. I looked at the papers but didn't touch them. I asked what would happen if I decided I didn't want to sign. Her expression shifted. It was a small change, easy to miss if you weren't watching for it. But I'd been watching people's faces for 30 years, the exact moment they stop performing and let you see the real calculation underneath. She mentioned care facilities. Long-term options, said she and Leonard had been talking, and they both felt it was time to have a serious conversation about my situation. The house was too much for one person in my condition. It wasn't fair to any of them to keep pretending otherwise. I looked at Leonard. He was staring at the table. I said I appreciated the concern and would think it over. Diane gathered the unsigned papers. Dinner ended without another word. That night, I sat in the study and listened to the house settle around me. 67 years old. The same walls I grew up inside, the same floors my father built. I thought about Leonard at that dinner table, not saying a word while his wife told me I needed to be put somewhere. I thought about the 24-year-old kid I used to fish with on Saturday mornings who would wake me up before dawn because he was too excited to wait. I didn't sleep much that night, but I wasn't angry. Anger is a distraction. I had work to do. By Thursday morning, I had a complete case file ready to send. 40 pages, cross-referenced, sourced, formatted exactly the way I used to prepare federal referrals at the end of a major investigation. the LLC registration fraud, the $175,000 in hidden debts routed to my property, the $85,000 in fictitious invoices, the toxicology report documenting the antihistamine compounds in my coffee, the recording I'd made of Diane's dinner table threat because after she started talking about care facilities, I'd made sure the small device in my shirt pocket was running, the connection Nathaniel had found to the Pryor families, the Pryor husband's father who lost his house. I sent the full package to Nathaniel on Thursday afternoon. Friday morning he called back. A federal judge is reviewing the materials, he said. And Philip, this just became considerably larger than one property dispute. I thanked him and set down the phone. Downstairs I could hear Diane in the kitchen, humming to herself. Comfortable, settled, already planning her next step. She had no idea what was already in motion. 2 days after I sent the package to Nathaniel, Randall Osgood filed a civil claim against me on Diane's behalf. Equitable interest in the property. She alleged personal financial contribution of $85,000 toward improvements to Hargrove House and claimed that entitled her to partial ownership. I called Claudette when the filing notice arrived. Read me the exhibits, I said. I heard her flipping through pages. Then she slowed down. The receipts attached as evidence of her personal financial contribution. Claudette said, they're all issued to Carver Home Consulting LLC. There it was. Not Diane Hargrove personally, the LLC. Her own attorney had just handed us the case. Here's the thing about the corporate veil that Diane clearly never thought through. When you set up an LLC, you create a legal separation between yourself and the company. That separation protects you in some situations, but it also means the company's money is not your money. An LLC expenditure is not a personal investment. You cannot claim personal ownership rights in someone else's property based on payments your company made. Osgood should have caught that before he filed. He didn't because he'd taken $15,000 in cash up front from a client who told him what to file, and he did it. Attorneys who believe in their cases work on contingency. Attorneys who want to get paid before the case falls apart ask for cash up front. File to dismiss, I told Claudette. Request sanctions for frivolous filing. And I want attorney's fees. I can do better than a motion to dismiss, she said. I'll request dismissal with sanctions and ask the court to order her to pay your legal costs. Her own exhibits prove the claim has no legal foundation. The judge is not going to enjoy having his calendar wasted. The hearing was 2 weeks later. I walked into the Charleston County Courthouse with Claudette beside me. My leg was fully out of the cast by then, still a little stiff but manageable. Diane was already seated at the plaintiff's table with Osgood, both of them looking like people who hadn't read their own paperwork carefully enough. Osgood presented the claim, $85,000 in personal contributions, substantial financial investment, equitable interest based on demonstrated commitment to the property. Then Claudette stood up. She walked the judge through every receipt Osgood had submitted. One by one, contractor invoices, material purchases. Every document Diane's own attorney had filed as proof of her personal investment. Your Honor, Claudette said, every receipt in this exhibit is issued to Carver Home Consulting LLC, not to Diane Hargrove personally. Under South Carolina corporate law, an expenditure by a limited liability company cannot be claimed as a personal investment by its owner. The plaintiff has submitted exhibits that directly contradict her own claim. She paused to let that settle. Additionally, she continued, the source of those LLC funds is currently under federal review for potential fraud related to fictitious service invoices. The financial activity underlying this claim is part of an active federal investigation. Osgood was on his feet. Objection. Relevance. The judge looked at him with the patience of someone who had seen this maneuver too many times. Overruled. The source of funds claimed as personal investment is directly relevant to the validity of the claim. Continue. Counselor, Claudette finished. The judge didn't need long. The claim was dismissed as procedurally deficient. Diane was ordered to pay my legal costs of $12,000. The court noted that plaintiff's counsel should have identified the deficiency before filing. I watched Diane's face when the judge spoke. She'd come in confident. She left 2 shades paler. Osgood gathered his files and walked out ahead of her. He didn't shake her hand. That afternoon I was back at my desk when my phone rang. Nathaniel, the warrant's been signed, he said. Execution at dawn tomorrow, simultaneous at the residence and the LLC's registered office location. I thanked him. Hung up, I went to the back porch and sat in the old wooden chair that's been out there since I was a teenager. The April air was warm. The oak trees were moving in the breeze, slow and steady the way they always do. I thought about my father planting that tree the year I was born. 67 years later, it was still standing. Some things hold if you protect them right. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was anxious. I just wanted to be awake for it. The first light came up around 5:30, gray at first along the horizon, then going pink over the marsh. I heard the vehicles before I saw them. 3 dark SUVs turned into the driveway without sirens. Quiet and deliberate. Diana came out of the house in a robe, squinting at the agents, like she was trying to make sense of something that didn't fit into any plan she'd made. One of them read from the warrant. She kept saying there had to be a mistake, that this was a misunderstanding, that she needed to call someone. "You can make calls from the field office," the agent said. "Step aside, please." I sat on the back porch with my coffee and watched. She looked toward the house at one point, saw me sitting there. For a moment we looked at each other across the yard. I raised my cup. She looked away. They loaded boxes of documents from the house into one of the SUVs. Across town, a second team was doing the same thing at the Carver Home Consulting office. Hard drives, phones, financial records, whatever Diane had been keeping there. Leonard came and stood in the doorway behind me. He'd been up. I didn't know for how long. Neither of us said anything for a while. Then his phone buzzed. He looked at it. Diane's name on the screen. He stood there holding it while it rang. 4 rings, 5. He turned the phone face down without answering. That told me everything I needed to know about where my son stood. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Later that morning, I sat Leonard down at the kitchen table. I didn't ease into it. I laid everything out in front of him, the same way I'd laid it out for Claudette, the same way I'd laid it out for Nathaniel. The LLC registered at our address, the debt notices she'd been pulling from the mailbox, the fake invoices, the toxicology report, the recording from the dinner table where she'd talked about care facilities while he sat 3 feet away and said nothing. And then I showed him the limited power of attorney he'd signed 8 months ago. The one Diane had told him was routine paperwork. The one she'd been quietly trying to use to expand her access to his financial accounts. He read through it slowly, his jaw tightened. "I didn't read it before I signed," he said. "I know. She told me it was just a formality. Something about the joint account. That's how it works," I said. "They give you something small and true mixed in with something you haven't read. You sign because you trust the person handing you the pen." He was quiet for a while. Then he said, "She called me this morning." "I know. I saw. I didn't answer. I know that too." Leonard picked up the power of attorney and looked at it for another moment. Then he set it down and asked me what he needed to do. We called Claudette that afternoon. Leonard revoked the power of attorney in writing, signed and witnessed, filed with the county that same day. Claudette also prepared the full waiver document every claim Diane had ever made or could make against Hargrove House, past, present, and future. All of it surrendered in exchange for the federal prosecutor agreeing to note the cooperation in her sentencing recommendation. Diane signed it 2 days later from the county detention center, sitting across a metal table in a room that smelled like industrial cleaner. Claudette laid the papers in front of her. 3 pages. Diane's attorney, a different one this time, quietly told her she had no remaining options worth pursuing. Her hand was not steady when she signed. I watched through the observation window. I didn't feel satisfaction exactly. More like the specific relief that comes when something you've been carrying for a long time finally gets set down. The federal case moved forward on its own after that. Nathaniel's team had more than enough to work with. The 2 prior families, the previous husband's father, the network of fictitious invoices, the fraudulent guardianship referral service that kept appearing across multiple cases. Diane's situation became part of something much larger than one house on James Island. I didn't follow the details too closely after that. I'd done my part. The morning after the waiver was signed, Leonard knocked on my bedroom door at 6 a.m. He was standing in the hallway holding 2 fishing rods and wearing the same beat-up jacket he'd had since college. I didn't say anything. I got up, put on my boots, and grabbed my hat off the hook by the door. We drove out to the Kiowa River without talking much, set up at the same spot we used when he was 12 years old. The flat bank just past the second bend where the water slows down and the base hold in the shade of the cypress roots. The morning light was coming through the trees in long, thin lines. Egrets working the shallows, everything quiet. We fished for about 2 hours before Leonard said anything. I kept telling myself she just needed time to adjust. He said that she was difficult but not dishonest. I kept finding reasons. "People do that," I said, "especially when they're close to someone." "I sat there when she told you to get your own water." He paused. I didn't say a word. "No, you didn't. I'm sorry, Dad." I watched my line for a moment. A heron landed on a log across the water, folded its wings, and stood perfectly still. "You made the right call when it mattered," I said. "That phone call this morning, you turned it face down. That's what I'll remember." He didn't say anything after that. Neither did I. We fished until almost 10. Didn't catch much. Didn't matter. Hargrove House is mine. The trust is filed. The woman who spent 18 months trying to turn a 67-year-old man into someone who couldn't defend himself is facing federal charges that go well beyond anything that happened on James Island. And my son is sitting across from me at the dinner table again, actually looking up from his plate. I think about that Tuesday afternoon sometimes. The couch, the cast, the dry throat. The 10 seconds she took before she turned and said what she said. I think about Leonard looking at his phone. I should have acted sooner. I saw the signs and I talked myself out of them, one breakfast at a time, one charitable explanation at a time. That's the thing about people who are good at this. They count on you giving them the benefit of the doubt. They count on you not wanting to believe it. If you're in a house where someone watches the walls more than they watch you, pay attention to that feeling. Don't wait for it to get worse before you start asking questions. Document what you see. Talk to an attorney before you think you need one. Read every piece of paper before you sign it. And if someone tells you not to bother reading, that's exactly when you read it twice. I spent 30 years protecting other people from this kind of thing. Turns out the most important case I ever worked was the one happening in my own home. If this story meant something to you, leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And if you've seen something like this up close in your own family or someone else's, you already know how quietly it starts. Subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I'll be here.